Agenda item on the agenda is real estate. And I believe Director Merrill is going to be speaking to that.
Yes, hi, we have three things under real estate this evening. The first item is relates to a city-owned lot on the corner of North and Chella Street, which the city posted for sale. And this lot, map 107, lot 319, in the professional residential zone, assessed value of $25,500. We did receive 2 bids as a result of the public notice, and as is our process, we had 3 separate people review the 2 bids, and we reviewed them on the basis of quality of information generally, proposed use consistent with zoning, and site improvements. In this particular case, it's important because it's on a main street entering your community. So we are recommending that the council enter into a purchase and sale agreement with Randy Jacobs. He owns an abutting property at the laundromat, 145 North Street Laundromat. He would like to build a 30 by 40 two-story building to use as an office and additional parking for the laundromat. And his bid was $13,500. So
Could you repeat that number?
$13,500. $13,500.
5.
Yep. So that's a recommendation to the council.
Does any member of the council have a question to that? No? Councilor Kolaski?
I was going to make a motion.
Okay.
Motion to authorize sale of city-owned property. Claremont City Council hereby authorizes the city manager or his designees to negotiate, execute, and undertake all such actions as may be required to convey city-owned land located at tax map 107, lot 319, North Street to Randy Jacobs for $13,500, and to accept all proceeds related thereto for deposit into the applicable city account.
I'll second that.
Okay, so the motion was made by Councilor Kolaski, seconded by Councilor Simons. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, so that motion passes. Thank you.
Okay. The second parcel, city-owned parcel that we put out to bid was the former Universalist Church over on Broad Street. So that's map 120, lot 156. We did receive 1 bid for that parcel, and I think that our recommendation would be that we would like to go back and receive more information. There's still some information here because there's a building, and the building would require a significant amount of fit up and investment. I think we'd like to come back to you with a little more information on this particular lot.
Any questions or concerns from the council? No?
Agreed.
So we agree with the city's recommendation?
Okay.
Yes? Okay? Yes.
Yes.
All right.
The third item up on real estate, I think that we submitted to you in your packet a map of a portion of the city's municipal parking lot off of Broad Street. It's map 120, lot 87. It is behind the Goddard Emporium. And we have had a request from Kevin Lacasse, and he's here along with his representative, Jay Barrett, to talk a little bit about a project they want to do at the Goddard building and the request to the city for parking. They're looking for location for 17 parking spaces. So I don't know if you want to speak to the project at all?
Sure.
Okay.
I'll speak of the project first, and then maybe you can speak up as far as the construction or the architectural. Sure. Good evening. Thank you for taking the time to hear about this project. So we're excited for another project to be done in Claremont. So we currently own and manage apartments and mobile home parks throughout the state of New Hampshire, with the bulk of them here in Claremont. We own the building directly across the street from the Goddard Block, known as the Latchis Theater Building. And so we've watched over the years the Goddard Block kind of deteriorate over time and turn into its present state, which through efforts on the city and some innovations, ultimately the building was closed down for good reason. It was, there was quite a few issues with it. I learned about the building and talked to the current owner and told him of my interest in purchasing the building and doing some renovations. So when I first learned of it, I had learned that I knew there was some code violations, but not to the full extent of it. So my original plan was to go in and correct the code violations, clean it up, and reoccupy it with residents. Well, when I went in there, I found what was truly there, and it's a huge structure. It's about 40,000 square feet, and it's in complete disrepair. We went in from, so the building was probably renovated and was in pretty decent shape in the early 1980s, I think, from what I've been told. And there really hasn't been any improvements done or even upkeep and maintenance from what I can gather since that time. So, the living conditions that people were living in were unsanitary and severe code violations and life safety issues that were a concern to me. So then when I looked at it further, I noticed that some of the obsolescence of, just the fit and finish of it as far as cabinets, bathrooms, and so forth, as well as the lack of energy efficiency of the building. And take that even further to leaking plumbing behind walls and in ceilings and so forth. So when I looked at it, I said, okay, this is a great project, but in order for me to be involved in this project, it has to be done right. I don't think anybody could go in there and just do a brush over, slight renovation, coat of paint kind of thing and bring it up. So our plan for the building is to gut it right down to the studs and start over. Basically build a new construction building within the framework of the building that exists there today. So a project of that nature is going to be about $4 to $5 million in renovation to make that happen. So there's a couple funding sources that I've used in the past on other projects in other communities. Franklin, Berlin, currently have one underway in Bristol. And the funding stack is a low-income housing tax credit program administered through the New Hampshire Housing Finance Authority, as well as supplemental income coming in through the CDFA in the form of a community development block grant, as well as private capital to fund the gap and finance the remainder of the renovations. So that's the plan for the funding stack. Applications and so forth are in process to make that happen. I'd be happy to talk about the program in itself or answer any questions that you guys may have in that. But, some of the things, and we've got to come before some of the boards of the city of Claremont, planning and zoning, for a couple of changes that we're going to ask for. But, to prelude all of that would be to speak to you folks, because of one of the biggest issues that we have over there is lack of available parking in order to, one, even meet the current zoning regulations, and two, to meet the actual needs of what we think we'll need for that space. So we wanted, I'll let Jay talk a little bit more about the specifics as far as design, amount of spaces, where they would actually be located and so forth. But that's essentially, in a nutshell, the project before I turn it over to Jay to answer specifics. But it sounds like you've got a question.
For the viewing public, your name
Sure.
and the name of your company.
Oh, I'm sorry. My name's Kevin Lacasse. I'm the owner and founder of New England Family Housing.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Yeah. Is there
Any other questions before he turns it over to the other gentleman? I think we would all like to say thank you for your interest in bringing this building back up to where it can be. It's a wonderful asset to the downtown community, but we all agree that it's in a terrible state of disrepair.
Yeah. Well, thank you for saying that, and I appreciate the support I've gotten so far in looking to this. In working with the city manager and Nancy and everybody else from the city, it really seems like there's a valiant effort to, come together and really make this project move forward. So from a developer's perspective, it's, a ray of light to be able to work with a community that's, accepting of that. And that's, we've worked with other communities. The city of Berlin has been the same way. The city of Franklin has been the same way. But we've worked in other communities where it's not been the case, and it's really been nice. So.
It's nice to hear.
Well, that's good to hear. Mr. McNutt?
I just wanted to take the opportunity, I want to thank Kevin for his interest in trying to rehabilitate this building. I also want to thank the Sullivan County Manager and County Commissioners. The new County Manager, Derek Furland, also went on a walkthrough of this building to be able to see it firsthand. So I really think that is a good sign from the new County Manager, the interest that he's showing in this area as well. And it sounds like the county is also going to support Kevin's efforts with a CDBG grant as well. So
Excellent.
I just
That's
wanted to.
excellent news.
The collaboration we want to hear.
Yeah, and I second that notion. I mean, they've been all great to work with. So
Excellent.
yeah, much appreciated.
Thank you. Councilor Pope, you had a comment?
You brought up a good point about the walkthrough on that building. I was going to ask if some of the council members could take a walkthrough to see that beforehand and after as well, because I remember when we did the Brown Block, I did a walkthrough on the Brown Block,
Yeah.
2 or 3 of those, even during construction. And it was eye-opening that whatever the stories I heard of the Brown Block were highly understated.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I would like to be able to do that, so just so I have frame of reference.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I'd love to coordinate that. That'd be great. And in the state that it's in would be a good time to do it. In the summer months would be great. Well, but yeah, so we can, talk with Nancy and set up a showing to do that and invite all you folks to come take a
Yes,
walk.
thank you.
So, sure.
And it would be nice to see the development unfold through pictures, so people
Yes.
can kind of, see what's happening.
Okay,
That's at
yeah.
all possible.
Absolutely. And as we're going through the construction process, I don't know if the school would have any interest in seeing, active construction job site. That's another thing we're considering on another project that we're doing. So, I'd love to be involved in that aspect as well. so.
Excellent.
Yeah,
Thank
feel
you.
free to send me an email on that, and I'll forward it to the appropriate person. I work one room over from me.
Great. Okay. Yeah. Perfect. Okay.
So would the council like to hear from the other gentleman at this point?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Jay Barrett. I'm a local architect in White River Junction, Vermont. For the record, my real name is Frank J. Barrett, Jr. And I've been working with Kevin on this project for about 2 or 3 months now. We're still on the very, very preliminary sort of walkthrough stages of the project. I've been through the building several times with a structural engineer and with a mechanical, electrical, and plumbing engineer. And basically, the bones of the building are good structurally. It was a building built in 1926. And then there are some additions that have been made to it in the back and whatever. But structurally, the bones are good. If you can look beyond the debris and the, it's the squalor and whatever. Kevin is absolutely correct that electrically, mechanically, fire protection-wise, everything is just shot in that building. It's pretty disgusting. Leaking plumbing, et cetera. There's no sprinkler system in the building. The thing is a tinderbox if a fire ever got going. It's a maze of corridors and passageways that, really frighten the fire department, and rightfully so. So Kevin is not exaggerating when he's saying that the project as he's envisioning it, and as I'm envisioning it, is to literally gut the building down to the steel frame that's inside of it, right down to the rafters, down to the floor joist, and with all new systems, all new layouts, bring the building back. Presently, there are 24 apartments in the building? Yeah. 24 apartments between the second and third floor. What our proposal is, because we are planning such a major gut job or cleaning out of the building, would be apartments on the second and third floor, as well as taking a portion of the first floor for apartments. Two applications that I have filed for appearance before the next Zoning Board of Adjustment meeting is for two things. One is for asking for variance to allow some amount of residential use on the first floor, where we're proposing to keep the storefronts on Pleasant Street, and they would just be not as deep as they presently are. So keeping two storefronts, keeping an arcade passageway through the building as it presently has it on the first floor to link Pleasant Street with the back parking lot. But on the back side of the building, where it gets some really good sunlight, to have dwelling units, a small manager's office, and a community room for the residents, as well as a nice exit or entrance on the back side of the building. And then on the second and third floors, as I say, to develop totally new dwelling units. With a mix, right now we're looking at around 32 units, combination of 2-bedroom, 1-bedroom, and studio units is possible. Of course, at this point, we haven't gotten too far into the details of exactly planning them out, but looking at allocating spaces, et cetera. So that brings us to the issue of parking, which is always difficult in downtown areas and probably the most fought over turf in communities before zoning boards and planning boards is parking. The ordinance, as it stands now, requires 1.5 parking spaces per dwelling unit. We have done some, research and analysis, and we feel that a reasonable number, an adequate number, is 1 space per unit. And so we're going to be asking the zoning board for a variance on that to allow that as the base calculator. So on site right now, and it's a rather peculiar lot, especially when you look at the back side of it towards Broad Street, but there is a tail of land that is integral to the lot. It's not a right-of-way. It's owned in fee that goes out to Broad Street and along the south side of the municipal parking lot. And right now, there's somewhere around 10, maybe 11, 12, it's a little hard to figure, spaces on there that work quite well as far as, the traffic pattern through the city's lot. We think that with some rejiggering and restriping, that we can get that number to be 12 legitimate parking spaces, accessed the same way, the one-way U through the parking lot. And then on our portion, or the back portion of the Goddard Block lot, develop some landscaping, opening the back side of the building up on the first floor, as I said, so that there are some deck areas and whatever for some first floor dwelling units, which would satisfy our handicap accessibility requirements by the state building code, and get some landscaping back there, as well as 3 handicap accessible parking spaces. And we can do that keeping the same dumpster location that we sort of share with the property next door at 66 Pleasant Street, where the fitness center is, as well as we need to maintain a right-of-way for them so as they can get to the back of their building. So schematically, everything is sort of fitting together for, I think, a good presentation to the Zoning Board of Adjustment in a week or so. But again, the big thing is parking. So right now, we're comfortable that on our property, with cooperation with the city, which has the adjacent parking lot, concerning traffic patterns, that we can get 15 spaces. So we're almost halfway. There are some there might be a possibility of getting some other spaces within the downtown from a private property owners. We're not really there yet. So to be very blunt with you, my mission tonight is to try to shake you down for some parking, as it were, to be. And again, I realize that parking in downtowns is, whether it be Claremont or whether it be Hanover, is difficult. And I think that no need for me to tell you how to do your business, but I'm working with another property owner to try to rectify a whole bunch of building code violations, and that's at 65 Pleasant Street, diagonally across the street, the building on the corner of School Street, where the first floor has been vacant, and that building is riddled with building code violations. And we think we got a new owner involved, and between Steve Coombs and Brian Burr, we're trying to coax them across the finish line. But one of the interesting things with that building is it's got a whole fourth floor that's vacant. It could be, very, very nice dwelling space. You get some nice sunlight, and you're up above the street and whatever. Talking to the new owner, a young guy, a fellow 33, who I think is looking at the property for the long haul, but he's saying, I'll never be able to develop that because of parking. And I said, well, I wouldn't be so sure of that. You're a young guy, and, let's hope that, over the years, Claremont works through, its parking issues so that could be very nice, living space up there. Because it's a good building. It's just that it's riddled with building code violations. But it's not a piece of junk building. It's not something that should be scraped and thrown away. Not at all. So I guess what I'm saying to you is several things from an architect's standpoint and one who does a lot of planning and permitting work. There is an issue with parking downtown that's starting to butt heads with the prospect of getting older buildings reprogrammed and repurposed, not sitting vacant or partially vacant, which doesn't do anyone any good. Again, I realize that it's not, not easy for you folks to say, well, what the hell? Why don't you take those 15 spaces over there and life will be good? I'm into my 22nd year serving on a select board in my hometown in Fairleigh, so I realize that, whether it be in a city council or in a select board, you just can't go willy-nilly giving stuff away unless you want to have your head handed to you. And I grew up in Hanover, and I can remember the parking wars there that started in the late 60s and still persist. They've just taken on different forms. But I am going to be before the Zoning Board of Adjustment in a week or so. And, what I'm telling them is, here's the number we think that's reasonable for the project, 30 to 32, depending upon the exact number of units that we finally get. Here's 15 that we know we got and can do, and we're looking at other sources, and the city is one of them, for some additional parking or help with the parking. But as I said to Kevin and Nancy, I can't go saying things like that at the zoning board, and then the city council gets broadsided by, what's this Yahoo saying about, the city's going to give us parking spaces, or we hope that they'll give us parking spaces. So that's, to just be very honest with you, sort of an overview of where we're at and what we're looking for. So anyone wants to make a motion to give us some spaces, it would be greatly appreciated.
Well, I appreciate your forthrightness and your understanding from your own experience as a select board member that we have to go about this fairly. So is there comments from the council before? Yes, Councilor Pope.
I'd certainly encourage city staff to look for some solutions and bring those to the council. To encourage what needs to be done. So.
Any other comments from the council? Yes, Councilor Kolowski.
Same thing. I'm comfortable with city staff hashing this out, and from my standpoint, this building's in the TIF district. There's no secret that the TIF district could use some assistance. So any investment in the TIF district is a positive, especially at the level that you're talking here. And I don't personally have an issue with the city having some skin in the game per se, as far as your investment in this community. So.
Okay, Councilor Damerman.
Yeah, I just wanted to echo those comments and say that this gentleman has been partially successful. I do feel somewhat shaken, but I'm willing to give that back to city staff. I think it would be a plus if we can find a way to work with it, but I'd like to leave that with city staff and have them bring back a recommendation. Things that we can do for the downtown area and the TIF district are certainly to be encouraged.
So if I'm hearing Councilor Toll?
I'm glad the other counselors spoke up, because I will bring this to the zoning board for that review.
She serves on the zoning
I
board.
thought you were a familiar-looking face. I was in here a couple of months ago on 200 Broad Street.
Yes.
Okay.
Assistant Mayor Bergeron?
Yes, Nancy, can I ask you a question? Did we not allow that kind of a storefront setup when we did the zoning changes?
The parking study that was part of the zoning changes in the city center work recommended that we look at shared parking in that particular section of the city
I'm
center.
talking about the building itself, storefronts with
Yes.
living quarters behind
Yeah,
it.
the
I
mixed
think we
use.
allowed that in the new zoning changes.
Yes, we did, yep. Strongly recommended.
So I think, anybody else before I speak?
I'm just thinking we need a copy of that particular one for that meeting to see it as a new zoning.
I believe the change, without looking at my book, was that in the city
up-
center, it would be commercial and retail on the ground floor and residential above. We had one other property that fronted, that's just basically across the street, where they wanted to put in a residential unit on the ground floor. And I believe they went to the zoning board to get that permission. So,
Thank you.
So to summarize, I think what we're hearing from the council is that we very much want to see this work, and that we're asking that the city come back to us with some proposals, what they would recommend, because there, as you already stated, there are a lot of pieces to consider. However, I think everybody's on board and wants to see this happen.
Well, I appreciate that, and, I think this is an important project. I mean, every architect always says whatever project he's got is important, especially if the client pays the bill. But I first got to know Kevin a year ago, this summer. There were some building code issues that had been brought to his attention on one of his units down on Union Street. And so Kevin called me, but instead of saying, can you just somehow, tell the fire department something and make this go away, it was, tell me what I need to do to fix it. And there was no balking, which is somewhat unusual. And then, the first time we looked at this building, again, it was someone who wasn't looking to just say, I think we can just sort of patch this up and that up, and, trying to get me to, formulate a script that's sort of patching and fast and dirty. But it was someone who was realistic, and I brought my structural engineer and our MEP engineers through. I said, this guy's got his eyes wide open, and he fully understands what needs to be done to this building to do it properly, which is in everybody's best interest. So I think it's an important project, and we hope that we can work together.
Yeah, this
Appreciate
is the
it.
type of quality investment we're looking for too, so
Yeah.
we appreciate you
Yeah.
making the effort.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is that all on that item? Director Merrill, that's all on that item. Thank you. Thank you.
Good luck.
Thank you very much.
Good luck.
Mr. Fulton, would you like to say something briefly?
I have a question.
Yes, okay. Is it for these gentlemen before they leave?
No, I think it's for, it's not
Okay,
No, it's different.
directly at that project.
okay.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The question is about CDBG grant. If I understood them correctly, the CDBG avenue that's being explored is through Sullivan County.
Correct.
As opposed to the city of Claremont. So I guess I'm asking for a little education. CDBG money is rationed, and how does that work? How much money does Claremont qualify for in a year or in 5 years? And to what extent has that been used up? Ditto question for the county, because the last CDBG help that Claremont got through Sullivan County, as I remember, is the parking expansion on Maple Avenue at Borden Center. Thank you.
Okay.
So if you could kind of give some information about the CDBG pot, maybe it'd be useful to know what future opportunities might be, and, you know, and not to say that this isn't would be a qualifying offer. Because if you get it through the county, some other of the 14 other Sullivan County towns are gonna say, well, Claremont's getting all the CDBG money, when is it gonna be our turn?
Okay,
I'll
so-
answer for the county.
So let Director Merrill answer the question. And
Right,
we'll
in terms
move on.
of the city, it's on your agenda, actually. I think it's a couple of items down. You have a CDBG application that's being submitted through the city. So the city can, there are two pots of money. One is economic development money, the other is public service, social service funding. We can apply for up to $500,000 a year as a city, and the county can apply for up to $500,000 a year as a county. So we've got one going in through the county this year and one coming in through the city. Is that
Thank
it,
you.
sir? Okay.
Okay.
On the county side, though, it was an open application process. The county only got one application, Kevin's. So they did have a public hearing at the county level, at a county commissioners meeting, and this information was put out there. Kevin just happens to be the applicant. And it is for the full 500,000.
So if these are successful, that's 1 million out of the needed 4.
So we're on a tight schedule tonight, and I think we've got the answer to your question.
Yes,
So
thank you.
we'll move on to item C. Thank you again, gentlemen.